All right, let's break down the complex and fascinating geography of Southeast Asia. This is a region you absolutely have to know inside and out for your civil service exams. Our goal here is to build a detailed mental map of the area, piece by piece, so you have all the key physical and economic features locked in.
So here's our roadmap for today. We're going to start with the big idea, the core concept of the region. Then we'll get into the nitty-gritty of its mountains and rivers. After that, we'll layer on top its incredible natural wealth. And finally, we'll tie it all together with climate and why this region is so strategically important right now.
First things first, to really get a handle on Southeast Asia, you have to understand its fundamental identity. It often goes by another name, and that name tells you almost everything you need to know about its deep historical roots.
And that term is Indochina. Now, this is way more than just a geographical label. You could think of it as a cultural blueprint. It tells you that this whole region has been a historic crossroads, a real melting pot of civilizations that was shaped in a huge way by its two giant neighbors, India and China. This idea of cultural fusion, that's the first key concept you should lock in.
Okay, so now that we've got that cultural foundation, let's look at the physical stage itself. Because when you look at a map, you see Southeast Asia is dramatically split into two completely different worlds, the solid landmass and the scattered island chains.
And this right here is the fundamental split you have to understand. You've got the mainland, which is basically the tail end of the massive mountain ranges of Asia, flowing south from the Himalayas. And then you have maritime Southeast Asia, a completely different world of archipelagos, made up of thousands and thousands of islands. Getting a grip on this dual nature is your first step to really mastering the region's geography.
And for your exams, here's a connection you need to make. That Arakan-Yoma Range in Myanmar, it isn't some isolated feature. It's a direct continuation of India's own provincial hills. Think of them as geological cousins. And then further south, the Tenasserim Range creates this really rugged natural border between Myanmar and Thailand. This slide is perfect because it illustrates a classic exam question, comparing the Shan and Korat plateaus. On one side, in Myanmar, you have the Shan Plateau. Think dry, think minerals like tin and tungsten. On the other side, in Thailand, you have the Korat Plateau. Think rubber plantations and a whole different set of minerals, like nickel. You really need to nail down these specific differences in what they grow and what they mine.
Now, to really wrap your head around the sheer scale of maritime Southeast Asia, let this number sink in for a second. Indonesia, by itself, is an archipelago of over 13,000 islands. I mean, just try to picture that. It's the largest archipelagic state in the entire world, and that fact alone has huge implications for everything from how it's governed to its culture and biodiversity.
Okay, let's switch gears and trace the paths of the great rivers. For the mainland countries, these aren't just bodies of water. They're the arteries, the absolute lifeblood that have fed civilizations and farms for centuries. These are the 5 names you have to know. You've got the Mekong, the real giant of the region, the Irrawaddy and Mekong, which are so critical for Myanmar, the Chao Phraya, the very heart of Thailand, and the Red River over in Vietnam. Each one of these defines the economy and where people live in the countries they flow through.
So this table is absolutely crucial. Match the following questions about which river flows through which capital city are incredibly common on prelims. The Mekong is special. It flows past 2 capitals, Vientiane and Phnom Penh. The Chao Phraya is totally synonymous with Bangkok. And the Red River Delta is where you'll find Hanoi. You've got to commit this to memory.
All right, the physical stage is set. We've got the mountains, the islands, the rivers. Now let's look at the incredible natural resources this geography provides. Because this is where the money is, right? This is where the region's economic power really comes from.
Agriculturally, this region is an absolute powerhouse. When it comes to certain plantation crops, they're not just players, they are the game. Think oil palm and rubber. Indonesia and Malaysia just completely dominate the world market. Of course, rice is the staple grown everywhere, but these huge commercial crops are what really define the region's role in the global economy.
Now for minerals, I want you to remember one simple phrase. It makes it super easy to recall. Just think the tin trio.
And here's why that little phrase is so important. These 3 countries, the tin trio, together, they account for over half of the entire planet's production of tin. Think about that for a second. That is a staggering concentration of a vital metal, and it gives them huge leverage over global supply chains for everything from your phone to new building.
Now, when we talk about energy, it's all about these hydrocarbon basins. You've got major fields in places like Myanmar supplying gas directly to China. Indonesia and Malaysia have big reserves too, but pay really close attention to Vietnam's basins, because look where they are, smack dab in the middle of the highly contested South China Sea, which, as you know, makes them a major geopolitical hotspot.
All right, let's add the final crucial piece to our map. We need to see how the weather patterns and the geopolitics of today interact with everything we've talked about to really shape this region's present and its future.
And just like its physical geography, there's a really clear split in the climate. On the mainland, think monsoons, very similar to the pattern in India. But for the island nations, it's a totally different story. We're talking a true equatorial climate, which means tons of rain all year long. And with that comes the constant threat of those massive destructive storms we call typhoons.
And this isn't just a weather report. This vulnerability to typhoons has real, tragic consequences. There's a reason the United Nations has singled out the Philippines. Its geography literally puts it right in the firing line of these powerful storms. And that's just a harsh reality of its physical location.
So let's boil it all down. What's the big takeaway from all this? Why does Southeast Asia's geography matter so much today? Well, it comes down to 3 key reasons. Number 1, it controls some of the world's most important shipping lanes, like the Strait of Malacca. Number 2, it's a critical resource hub for everybody. And number 3, because of 1 and 2, it has become a major geopolitical flashpoint, drawing in global powers.
Which leaves us with a final, big question to chew on. All of this incredible wealth, the super strategic location, is it the region's greatest strength? Or is it its biggest vulnerability? Does it make these nations powerful? Or does it just paint a giant target on their backs? That's something to think about as you continue to dig into this fascinating topic.